Hello everybody, Resonance here, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the current state of arena balance in Hearthstone after the One Night in Karazhan adventure was released. In this video, I will show Blizzard's upcoming changes to Arena that they just announced today, and discuss whether or not I think that they will improve arena balance. If you're interested in learning more about Hearthstone, then I encourage you to check out my tutorial on the basics, link in the video description below. I also livestream regularly on Twitch, and I'd love to have you there. So you can find the livestream schedule on my Twitch page, and you can get an announcement if you follow me on Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. So as always, thank you so much for taking the time to support the longevity of the channel by watching and liking my videos for other games. It means a lot to me. Alright, so without further ado, let's start with Blizzard's changes themselves and then talk about why they decided to do these. Now for those of you who are not aware, how it works in Arena is that you are offered 3 random cards, and then you would pick one from those 3, and then you keep drafting cards until you end up with a deck of 30. Arena is a very fun game mode, and one I've been playing a lot. However, unfortunately, it has been plagued by quite a few growing issues recently, and that's what Blizzard's changes here that you see on this blog post on the screen are about to address. So Blizzard has decided to remove 45 cards from the current Arena drafting pool. Now it's worth noting that in Arena, you are not actually able to draft every single available card in Hearthstone. In fact, Blizzard has already shown that they have the capacity to do this, because in Whispers of the Old Gods, Blizzard decided to remove all of the Cthulhu cards from Arena, so you cannot draft those. And also, when One Night in Karazhan was released, they decided to remove the Priest card Purify from the Priest pool of draftable cards. So now we're adding 45 new cards that are being removed from Arena on top of that as sort of a band-aid solution and like a first step to try and address one of the main problems in Arena, which is class disparity. So since the last few adventures and expansions, Mage and Rogue have been considered to be the top 2 Arena classes. This is because they just have a lot of very strong common cards, because in Arena, the rarity of the cards determines how often you see them in your draft. So Mage and Rogue have just had a relatively disproportionately high amount of high-quality commons, and then we have Paladin considered to be like a little bit below that, and then we have Shaman, Warlock, Druid, and Warrior, and then near the bottom, around Priest and Hunter. So hopefully Blizzard's plan here is to address these problems by what they're doing is they're removing some of the stronger cards in Arena that aren't really class defining from Mage and Rogue. So they're removing Forgotten Torch, Snowchugger, and Faceless Summoner, and then for Rogue, we are removing Goblin Autobarber and Undercity Huckster. I guess Paladin is around the place that Blizzard wants Arena class balance to be at, so Paladin getting no changes. And then for all of the weaker classes that I just mentioned, Shaman, Warlock, Druid, Warrior, Hunter, and Priest, Blizzard has decided to remove some of the weaker cards from the drafting pool. And the hopes with this is the same thing that they did when they removed Purify from Priest very recently in Arena, is the idea that if you remove some of the weaker cards from the drafting pool, then these classes will be more likely to see their stronger class-defining cards and will hopefully have a higher quality draft and then perform better overall as a result. So here we see that Shaman is losing Vitality Totem, Dust Devil, Totemic Might, Ancestral Healing, Dunemaul Shaman, and Windspeaker. Warlock will be losing Anima Golem, Sacrificial Pact, Curse of Rapham, Sense Demons, Void Crusher, Reliquary Seeker, and Succubus. So Druid will be losing Savagery, Poison Seeds, Soul of the Forest, Mark of Nature, Tree of Life, and Astral Communion. Whereas Warrior will be losing Warsong Commander, Bolster, Charge, Bouncing Blade, Axeflinger, Rampage, and Ogre Warmaul. Hunter will be losing Starving Buzzard, Cull Pet, Timberwolf, Cobra Shot, Lock and Load, Dart Trap, and Snipe, and Priest will be losing Mind Blast, Shadow Bomber, Lightwell, Power Word Glory, Confuse, Convert, and Inner Fire. So even though Mage and Rogue are losing a couple of their more powerful common cards, I still expect them to remain relatively near the top in terms of arena balance, and this is due to a number of reasons. For starters, their hero powers happen to be very favorable for board control, which is the general overarching strategy in Arena these days, and they also still have plenty of other powerful cards at their disposal. I still expect that the classes that did end up losing a lot of their worst cards do still remain somewhere near the bottom. But the whole point of this patch, though, is not to, shift around which classes are necessarily the top, but rather to just lessen the gap between them. because right now the difference between Mage and Rogue and, for example, Priest is really just too large. So overall, this patch is going to, I think, make a very positive difference for the arena metagame by weakening the top classes just a bit and then bringing up the lower ones just a bit. And the thing is that it's going to take, I think, some significant changes to the way that arena is structured and maybe some serious balance changes in order to really shift it around. But I do believe that this is a very good step in the right direction. So the general criticism with Mage is that they generally have access to too many removal spells, which can make them feel a little bit oppressive to play against, particularly at higher wins with higher quality decks. So by removing Forgotten Torch, Blizzard hopes to limit Mage's removal options just a little bit. Snowchugger is just a very decent, powerful 2-mana minion, which of course are very premium nowadays in Arena, and the freeze effect is quite nice, so removing that helps tone down Mage's early game a little bit. And Faceless Summoner happens to be absolutely ridiculous in Arena, just for the sheer value that it provides. In Arena, you're generally not going to be able to reliably draft for synergy, so when it comes to cards that are a colossal ball of stats, Faceless Summoner is your go-to pick. Now, of course, Mage will still be keeping a lot of their very powerful cards such as Flamestrike and Blizzard, which a lot of people complain about routinely, since Flamestrike is in the common slot. I do agree with Blizzard here, though. I feel like Mage should be keeping these powerful board clears. In fact, I think that every class should be keeping them and every class needs them. And this is because, without access to things like Flamestrike, Arena can become very snowbally, and then once you lose control of the board, you tend to just not have a way to come back. So I do like that they are letting Mage keep things like Flamestrike and Blizzard, and I don't think it's necessarily problematic that those cards exist. If anything, I think it's more problematic that other classes don't have as strong AoE. So, when I look at a class like Priest, I can't help but feel that they deserve, I guess, a better Holy Nova as a way to not only help them in Arena, but also construct it as well. Now on to Rogue. Rogue will be losing Goblin Autobarber and Undercity Valiant. One of the reasons why Rogue is going to be one of the top arena classes, or at least very decent for a while, is because their hero power just happens to be very strong for board control. You can dagger up on one turn, and then you still have the second charge the next turn that you didn't have to pay for, so you can just play another minion and then use that to help you secure board control. Goblin Autobarber, since it gives your weapon +2 attack when it's played, is actually very, very strong in Arena and is generally going to be one of Rogue's better commons. Undercity Valiant as well has the ability to, when you combo it with a card, to kill off a weak enemy minion, and then also it puts another body on your side of the board. So, it's these big tempo swings, tempo being, of course, when you remove an opposing threat while also building your own board presence, that make Rogue such a strong Arena class, so I think that this will help tone them down a little bit. Now I'm going to really briefly go over all of the other classes here. So Paladin had no changes, and one of the reasons why Paladin floats slightly below the top is because Keeper of Uldaman just happens to be a very flexible, high-utility minion. I don't really feel like Paladin is overwhelmingly good these days anymore, though. I feel like Paladin is just very fine, and I'm glad that Blizzard is kind of balancing around them. We go to Shaman, and now we're just going to talk a little bit about how all of the cards, or at least most of the cards that Blizzard removed from the weaker classes, are just going to be these, very weird synergistic cards that are just very difficult to get value out of in Arena, and some of them almost impossible to get value out of in Constructed. Vitality Totem, again, in Arena, we don't really care that much about healing. It's significantly less valuable. This body doesn't really impact the board state very much, because again, in Arena, you can't draft for synergy reliably, so you're looking for very efficient cards, and Vitality Totem healing your face doesn't matter. While you've spent mana doing that, your opponent is building up a bigger board. Dust Devil has a little bit too much overload. It's really diluting the common slot for Shaman. It just dies to hero powers. Totemic Might, again, these are things that we don't really want to see when we're drafting. Ancestral Healing is actually one that I feel like is kind of interesting. It's a shame that they lose that. Dune Maul Shaman and Windspeaker. I feel like even though these cards are underperforming probably on a statistical level, it's unfortunate that Shaman is losing some of their more class-defining cards. I feel like I would have personally removed the Wind Fury 2-mana spell, give a minion Wind Fury instead of Windspeaker, but overall I think that these changes are good for Shaman. Again, and we're going through Warlock here. Anima Golem, just a little bit too unreliable. Sacrificial Pact, way too situational. Curse of Rathon doesn't really impact the state of the board. Sense Demons, kind of hard to draft for too much demon synergy, and even then, the card draw is not that useful in Warlock. Void Crusher, this card is absolutely awful in Constructed too, because it can kill itself with the Inspire ability. Reliquary Seeker, very difficult to activate in Arena, because you're less likely to get these like Swarm cards, like Forbidden Ritual. Succubus, Again, I feel like some of these cards are ones that define Warlock a little bit as a class. It's kind of a shame to see them go, even though Succubus isn't that good. You know, one of Warlock's themes is, you know, paying life, paying cards as a cost, so losing out of things like Succubus and Sense Demons feels a little strange to me. But, yeah, I understand why they would do that, because really they don't perform very well statistically, because Succubus, you know, you lose a card, you play it, and then it just dies to another 2-drop with 3 attack, and then you ended up losing 2 cards total there, so that's not so great. So Druid is losing, much like the other weaker classes, a bunch of weird situational cards, which, while are kind of cute, are very difficult to draft around in Arena. Savagery, you're not likely to get enough stuff to actually buff your hero power to the point where this is efficient. Poison Seeds, generally not going to improve the board state very much for you. Soul of the Forest, you're going to have a lot of minions on the board for this thing to actually get value. Mark of Nature is a curious one. This card is certainly okay, and I would kind of like to see Blizzard not removing so many spells from Arena, because another one of the problems with Arena is that there are just not enough spells in the decks compared to before, as they just keep adding more efficient minions and printing crap spells, so it's a shame that Druid is losing actually only spells here. Tree of Life, you know, we don't value the healing as much in Arena. Astral Communion is absolutely awful in Arena. Discard your entire hand to lose the game because you can't consistently draft enough big guys, and if you have 2 Astral Communions in Arena and a ton of huge dudes, then that is impressive nonetheless. Warrior is also losing a lot of situational cards. Warsong Commander, not generally going to be that efficient, even if you fill your deck with charge minions. Bolster is actually something that is decent and constructed, but it's just not reliably going to get enough taunt minions for Bolster to be good, and it has to hit at least 2 targets ideally. Charge is a card I think is okay, but again, a little situational. Bouncing Blade, kind of a curious one to remove. I guess it just, you know, since you are going to be drafting a deck in Arena that might not have as much synergy with your own minions taking damage with things like, well, I guess they're removing Axeflinger, which is kind of a cute combo, so no more of that. Axeflinger, again, you know, you're not going to reliably be able to self-damage it as much, I guess. Rampage is a curious one to remove. I feel like that is rather important for the class identity, and honestly an okay Arena card. Ogre Warmaul, just a garbage weapon that dilutes the pool. It so turns out that if your weapon has a chance of missing, it becomes significantly less valuable. And now onto Hunter. So Starving Buzzard is a minion that is really overcosted for its stats, even though the effect is very powerful, and the problem with this in Arena is that the effect is just too inconsistent. You never know how many beasts you're going to get, so Starving Buzzard won't end up drawing you that many cards, and if you play a 5-mana 3/2, you're probably going to lose. Because again, you can't reliably draft for synergy in Arena that often, so you would generally go for very efficient cards, and Starving Buzzard is not one of them. Culpet, again, you don't know how many beasts we're going to have. Timberwolf, we don't know how many beasts we're going to have, and a 1-mana 1/1 is not that great. Cobra Shot is not the most efficiently priced removal spell. We generally want removal spells that are able to impact the state of the board so that our minions stay alive, and that way we're able to push for more damage, thereby just keeping our minions alive. And Cobra Shot is an interesting choice to remove. I think it's generally not that efficient. Lock and Load, it's kind of a shame to see this one go, even though it's not great in Arena, because you're probably not going to reliably draft that many spells, and it does dilute the epic slot. Dart Trap, not a great Hunter spell. Generally speaking, you know, it's not going to be that reliable at actually controlling the board, and we don't care that much about 5 damage to their face. And then Snipe is a curious one to remove. I know that Snipe doesn't perform that well in Arena, but removing all these secrets does certainly weaken. I feel like it, at least with Snipe, this is the type of thing that it was okay enough, and it gave Hunter some sort of identity, and it works very well with Cloaked Huntress, so it's kind of a shame to see that go. Last but not least, we have Priest. Mind Blast, again, we don't really care that much about spells that deal just damage to the face. We would prefer something that controls the board, so that's why Shadow Bomber is out as well. Lightwell, self-healing, generally. Now, this one's not going to actually remove any minions, so it just allows your opponent to build up an insurmountable board state, and then you just kind of lose the game. Power Word Glory as well doesn't really impact the board state, and healing is just less valuable in Arena. Confuse is a really cute combo card that you can't really draft a deck where you really want to flip the stats of your minions like you would with maybe things like Ruby and Egg, for example. Convert, just very slow value card that generally won't be that great in Arena. You know, you just end up spending 2 mana to put something really nice in your hand and need to play it again, so it's generally not that great. Inner Fire, again, is really cute in some sort of combo deck, but in Arena that's just going to be less consistent to draft. So while these changes certainly aren't perfect, I think they're an excellent first step at addressing one of the main problems in Arena right now, which is just class disparity. And also, I'm just really happy that Blizzard was pretty quick on the ball with this one. It's great to see them actually communicating with people and responding to community pressure. because the current state of arena balance has been a big problem, and it's good to see Blizzard shifting around their priorities to try and address that. And I'm really just looking forward to seeing how much of an impact these band-aid fixes actually make to the overall 1-8 in Karazhan arena metagame. So that basically sums it up for this one. I wanted to keep this video relatively quick. I realized that some of my card discussions might have been a little bit difficult to keep up with, but I wanted to try and keep it, digestible and just get a general feel for how much you guys enjoyed this type of thing. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do let me know by leaving a comment below and a thumbs up on the video itself. It really helps out a lot with the longevity of the channel. I'd also like to read your comments below and tell me what you think of the current state of Arena and if you think that these changes will help in some way. What do you think of Blizzard's card choices? Were there ones that you think you would have removed instead? This is of course assuming that the only tool that they have at their disposal right now is just removing cards. Overall, I'm generally happy with this list, and I think that this will make a positive impact on the game. And of course, if you're interested in playing with me and or watching me play some Hearthstone and other games live, I really encourage you to head on over to my Twitch page, link on the screen and in the video description. I also have a Facebook and Twitter page where I will tweet and post regularly, and it's also a great way to figure out when I'm live streaming next. As always guys, thank you so much for the support and for watching, and I'll see you all next time.